Yo,
Hello?
can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh man, this is amazing. Good to see
What's
you,
up, dude?
I'm
What's
like,
up? Hold on, I gotta put the socks on.
okay, totally.
All right, how's it going?
Alright, just like, kind of weird couple days, but I'm okay, I think.
Yeah. What's going on?
Just like organizing a bit more stuff and like, had some time to think a bit more about art and all the stuff you're not supposed to waste your life doing or spend your life
Yeah.
doing. But good results came, I think.
Yeah.
You get a new haircut? Is it beard?
Something. No, it's just growing.
Just growing?
Maybe I don't remember.
Okay. Looks good. The beard looks good also. It's good looking.
Yeah, I just letting it all grow out, I guess.
Dope. Alright.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with my socks.
With your socks, okay. Let's
It's
see.
gotten it was super warm here for like here in Berlin for the first couple weeks,
Yeah.
and then one day it just totally switched and like fall has begun.
Jesus. Cool. Yeah, I love fall. Like it's pretty beautiful in Syracuse right now.
Yeah, I believe it.
Let's see. Well, I'm just like opening up like a Google Doc. Let's see. So what are you just chilling in Berlin? You're just like on vacation or something, or?
Not really on vacation. I just have a few.
You're,
Well, generally speaking, I don't know where I'm going.
gotcha.
But yeah, I'm just enjoying being here. Berlin is a very strange place that you end up just enjoying being there, and it can be a bit paralyzing. It's a sort of a strange city in this way. And I definitely fall into like the old habits and stuff, but anyway, it's all a journey, you know. I've been getting good work done, so with writing and recording and different stuff. So
Cool. What's the So you mentioned this paper. What are you? What's going on with the paper?
Well, yeah, that'd be a lot to reconstruct, but I basically, I mean, we've talked about this before. I really love the work of Paul Celan, the poet, and also this guy Laurel.
Right.
And they're kind of as different as you could be in terms of how they write.
Okay.
Because the one is like you know, trying to do this axiomatic scientific type thing. That's Laurel, and then you have Celan who's just writing poetry. I mean, you'd have to read these things to sort of know how differently they are structured as discourses, and how they're trying to communicate is very, very different. But the intuition that I had and that I was just going with was that they're actually sort of talking about the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
This has to do then with like basically how they talk about utopia.
Okay.
And utopia in relation to the end times. And so that's what the article is about, is basically trying to like figure out this dynamic between when people think how artists and thinkers think about the end of time and death, and like when everything's all over, and how the reverse side of that is expressing an idea of utopia or something. So I'm just trying to like tease out this dynamic from these two writers who are totally opposite to each other in a way, but nonetheless sort of resonate in these pretty surprising ways. That, you know, what can we learn from that? Yeah, so it's one of these things where I studied both of them for like 5-10 years at least. So they're just like totally a part of my body. So I'm trying to figure out this like, virus that I caught from both of them. That's basically the point of it.
That's pretty cool. I had a similar experience with like I haven't like really like I haven't had to like talk rigorous or like talk about this stuff like with my mouth in a while. So it's like, in text
really?
it's so much easier. Yeah, or it's
You've
like
just been writing down or making images or what?
both, like making art, images, and and texting. So it's like, with text, it's like a concept sounds like a concept, but when you say it with your mouth, it's just like, what are you talking about, man? Like, are people like?
But I feel that constantly though. I like whatever I just said. I found to be totally stupid.
It doesn't make any sense when you hear it, right?
No, it doesn't make sense to me either.
Is this like shit?
That's why I tried to save myself by saying I'm just figuring out what sort of like virus.
Yeah. Like in person, you have to constantly like put these like membranes and stuff on it, like, and then like you can see the other person like losing interest or getting irritated and mad, like.
Oh yeah.
I'm constantly experiencing that.
Well, but that's kind of, I mean, for me, the writing and speaking are totally different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when I'm speaking, I can't really edit myself except to say something else.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can edit myself, or I can say, oh, I didn't mean that, or sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, I have to, in order to edit myself, I have to just pour more word vomit on top of what I already
exactly, because like each
vomited,
Yeah, because it's like like a single word will contain like a paragraph actually, or like will require a paragraph.
Exactly.
Understanding it.
In the mind, it's just a word that's binding together a bunch of totally kind of separate ideas in your head.
Yeah. What I was gonna say, I had this really so I was talking about like in my day, I had a really odd conversation. I was actually talking with Selma about this because she was preparing for a performance, and I was helping her like craft a line, and then I was watching like Tarantino movies. Like, you ever watch Pulp Fiction and stuff? Like,
oh yeah, I've seen all of his movies.
Yeah, and then I was like, what's interesting is like his, this is my understanding, is like his like dialogue is kind of machinic. It's like almost like all about negotiation, and like just like purely like, we're gonna do this and then do that. It's like, and you see the scenario of this tree of possibilities or whatever.
Possibilities, yeah.
And then I was just thinking about like, oh, this is like the language also of like business deals and all this stuff. It's like you say, I'm gonna put this in that thing and that goes there, and then this is gonna make this machine that like makes us money or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like pacts and like agreements between people. It's kind of like it's more like you're speaking in a diagram than like that. But
in that movie, I'm remembering that there's always a bit of ambiguity in the contract.
Oh yeah.
In a movie like Pulp Fiction, like I forget the characters' names, but it's John Travolta and Uma Thurman are like, John Travolta is like supposed to entertain her for the night, but then there's this whole like bizarre kind of sort of romantic but sort of not kind of relationship forms between them.
Yeah.
And then she like accidentally snorts the wrong drug, and it's just like turns into total chaos. Like a huge string of misunderstandings that come from the contract as well.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just talking to a friend who was trying to like negotiate with his landlord. Like, the landlord wanted them to stay like an extra couple months or something with a roommate, and then the roommate was like, "Oh, I'm out of here," and then the landlord was pissed And then my friend was like, negotiations are very fragile. I was like, yeah, of course, because it's like, and then I was like going through this thing where like I had to negotiate something with somebody else, and I was like, there's all these like rules that then implied rules that happen where it's like you try to hide information from people, and I was like, this is kind of stupid, because if you actually like spelled everything out, you could be like, this is a good deal or not, and it's like 5 seconds, like
Yeah.
I don't know, but
I think people usually. I think people want to protect their interests, and they have things that they don't want other people to know about.
right, exactly, and then it's like, but then there's also like, from what I found is like there's usually like a sweet spot, like there's like a win-win point, but it's like that requires like massive amounts of information, which then people don't want to. That's not the culture to like throw everything on the table and then sort it out. It's like,
No, it's not.
it's like I'm just gonna try to, like, I have this like
More of a
preset.
manipulation. It's more of a manipulation.
Yeah.
Like, what's the little bit I can give you to?
Yeah. I don't really care what happens to you. Like
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get that bit, and then, but it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. In terms like, if these two models of negotiation, it's like it doesn't make any sense, because it's like the other one will consistently produce better outcomes.
Yeah.
But I was also thinking, I mean, like, that's what I was thinking about in relation to the idea of superposition came back recently. Just had to use it, which was like why I made that new diagram of the share machine recently, which is the idea of like this superpositional economy, which is like, okay, why don't we just extend out like the economy to all possible states, and then obviously there's like an optimal state. There's always like an optimal state, even if it's like non-existence or whatever. But
do you think that's total information, or?
no, I don't think it's total information. I think it's like, because from what I understand, passing information costs time, right? Which is like why people hate talking. And like the same problem with like, you say a concept and then I'll lose, or like people will be like, what the hell are you talking about? Which happens to me. But that's the problem, is like, it's like what it requires. But I have this feeling that like you can just create like a janky system where it's like that there's all these possibilities, that there's like a win-win point, which requires a certain information protocol, which also nobody can have full information 100% of the time, so it has to be like periodically reevaluated, but not too much or too little. So I think like even the information procedure has to be integrated into that, because like unpredictable stuff happens.
Well, that's the other part of it, is people don't always know what they want out of a contract or what they want out of a situation, and then they get in the middle of something and their mind changes about what they want from it.
Right, exactly. Which is also like,
Just
but there's also
navigate.
And there's also like unpredictable good things that happen, like unpredictable opportunities that arise. What was I gonna say? But I also thought, like, in terms of that, what I thought was interesting, we were talking about a couple of days ago, when you told me to make the predicates.
To do what? What did I say?
You're like,
oh yeah. To make a list, basically a list of descriptors.
to make me think of, like, go through and think of the things that I don't want.
Yeah.
Which I thought was genius, because I started using that in freelancing. I was like, instead of actually having to do, because usually in freelancing it's like people are like, let me see all the options, and then you have to spend like hours like building things that are not going to happen, just so somebody can be like, that's not good. But I was like,
you have to. No, go ahead.
But no, that's why I was like, oh, this is a genius trick, because it's like I can just create a question or like a machine in the other person's head where they find the negative conclusion themselves.
Yeah. So how do you know an example how you would do that?
Well, it's kind of like I was making a while ago. I was making these like things called quanswers, where the answer is in the question, which is like do you think
Mhm.
something like, is it possible that if we build this website without password protection, that it will get hacked, and then or something, something like that. Like you bring up
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's like, of course it's possible, and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, it is possible. Oh, I don't want that. Okay, X that. We need password
Yeah.
protection.
I see. Yeah.
But they hadn't
Yeah.
even like ontologized it prior.
Hmm. I'm trying to come up with one.
Well, it's like it's kind of like it's kind of like a Zen koan, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
to prevent thinking or something.
Yeah. I don't have as much experience in these kind of more business type relationships, like
Right. Yeah.
where you're having to negotiate for a kind of known goal or something, right?
Yeah. It's pretty interesting because it's like all about like shifting somebody's sense of possibility and then like guiding them to like the obvious solution or something.
Do you usually feel like you know what the successful solution would be, and it's just a matter of bringing somebody around to that, or
yeah. Like most of the work is actually like
getting them to believe in it, or
yeah, because it's like usually the solution is just like
Yeah.
stupid simple. Like what they want is like what should be done is just like one thing, extremely simple.
Mhm.
Which I don't know. I was thinking about that in terms of like culture, like how to say it. Or like I was thinking about that in terms of culture as like means of communication, like. Yeah, like means of like it's in everything, like negotiation of like houses or whatever, or like rent and all this stuff. It's like you have to figure out what are the possibilities, what's a good possibility, and then like what fits with available things. And it's like the same three problems over and over.
The same three problems.
Yeah, same general three problems, like over and over.
Yeah.
Which is, and it's like constantly happening all the time.
Wait, did you say the three questions? Did I
The
miss
three
that?
problems? No, I didn't say them. It's basically like, it's basically like, what, like, what are, what is the good possibility where everybody wins, or and then what are the available resources on hand, and then how to sequence them between parties to make them work for the least amount of work for everybody, and like most stability. I was gonna say.
I'm just typing that.
Oh sure, yeah. But
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, all the sort of like weird strategies that people sometimes really absurd strategies that people take in life are probably related to this in some kind of
yeah,
bizarre. Well, I mean, people are short-sighted too. They don't always want the possibility where everybody wins. I guess some people
right.
actively seek other people are harmed, which is sort of fucked up
Also, yeah.
possibility in itself. But
Which is like, which you can observe, and it's like in Tarantino films, you can like observe
yeah,
this miscommunication and like constant misunderstanding and misnegotiation, like, and then scheming and all this stuff, like, and I just thought it was really interesting because it's like it's like some of these characters are seen as like clever or like intelligent, or I mean,
Yeah.
to degrees, but it's like you're like, wait a second, like this could have got another way, like because it's like a machine, so you're like, if you put this other part of the machine at this time, I don't know.
Yeah, but isn't the kind of funny thing to think about that, like, you would never have a movie if like everybody just
was working
works
correctly,
works
well,
together for the best possibility. Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't have a movie anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like
I think people probably feel that in their own lives too, and that's it's like, well, what's the fun in that?
Well, that's an interesting thing because it's like this is what I think is like
Like I'm just gonna actively sabotage your happiness because
just because I want to see what happens.
it's fucking because.
Yeah. But I also think yeah.
I'm not suggesting
No,
that. I'm just
yeah. But it's like, what's the
seems
point
to
of
happen.
watching? Yeah. But I think there's you ever see The New World?
No, I don't. I didn't see that one. No.
That's pretty good. Because
That's Terrence Malick or something, or
yeah, Terrence Malick. Because it's an interesting, like, it has an interesting structure, which is like almost like it's like it has the same kind of like misnegotiation kind of mash of like which most stories rely on, or like Tarantino really pushes to that absurd. But it goes in the opposite, which is like these accidents create like totally weirdly escalating positive or like positive possibilities. Which I mean, like he has to use all these devices like poetry, like to glue it together.
Yeah.
But it's like this spiral of, and then there's still like violence and shit, like falling apart, all the stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's this spiral of like kind of exceptions or something, or unexpected things. Which I'm not saying is like better or whatever. I just noticed like as a structure, it's like, oh, this is kind of like the anti-structure to Tarantino. But what I was like recently looking at was like, you ever see David Lynch stuff?
Yeah.
Did you see Inland Empire?
That's the one that I haven't seen yet, actually.
Man. It's to me.
I know. I really need to see it.
It's like it's really is like for me it was like the most like it was like a crystal like distillation of everything he does, like, and then it's like the logic in that like and that movie is like incredible because it's like the total median. If you had like Tarantino on one end, like self-destruct like chaos machine, and then like the Malick on the other end, and then like Lynch is like he's like purely in the middle, where it's also like really fluid, like the dream logic and stuff, like the recursiveness and all this stuff, and it's like he still puts in all the like the nightmarish like surreal stuff, but if you like cut all this stuff away, like I think he made like the perfect movie. Like if you like took away all the images, it's like this is the perfect movie. Or it's like the last film where it's like almost like every other film can then be hung onto it and seen from that perspective. It's like as a going this way or that way or this way or that way or whatever. But
so it's kind of like compass or something.
Yeah. It's like it's like almost like if you took away all his imagery, like his kind of like emotional affect. It's like, and you just looked at the structure. It's like this is the complete thing. Yeah, the compass. This is like. You can tilt this any way, and you can put anything into this machine.
And what do you think? How do you think that structure works, or what do you think what's its characteristic?
Well, it's basically there's one that's like this. I think it's 3. So it's like there's always like this recursion that. Kind of, it's constantly enveloping all the images that are colliding together. So he at some point he creates a loop. So and then it's like film is divided into, or it's kind of like two or three loops usually. But it's like every time the loop returns, then like something different happens, but then it gets incorporated into the next loop. So that's one thing. So it's like it keeps this like you always have this understanding it's a singular object, or it's a cohesive singular entity. And and the second is he kind of just like works very intuitively. So it's almost the opposite. It's like jazz.
Yeah.
Like he's freestyling, like when he's editing and all the stuff, and it's like he's really pushing the associations between images and whatever things happening. And then it's like, so that's like, I think that's the second element. And the third one is like, then he's constantly the second element is the rhythm is very like freestyle, improvisational. And then the third one is like, what happens is like, then he kind of nests within the film is like the characters are, or like the frames of reality are kind of blending. Like a character will see something in a movie, be thinking she's playing in a movie, and then say something, but then like look around and then she's in real life, and then like say something else, and it's like then it's a dream, but it's like in the space of 10 seconds. So it's like,
oh my god, yeah,
the frames are kind of meshing together, and it's like with those three elements, it's like you can really do anything. Like it can really just
You totally reminded me of this scene in the new Twin Peaks. I don't know if you haven't seen the third season. Yeah, totally. It's definitely doing all the things that you're describing, I would say. Yeah, for sure. There's this one scene, one of the characters, her name is Audrey, and her position in the new season is a bit bizarre. But there's one scene where it just flashes for like, it's not even, I don't even think it's like 10 seconds, but I forget how long it is, but it flashes and she's just in this white room looking in a mirror or something. And it's totally nightmarish, but it's this level of where what's weird is that everyone is in a way being blended into a reality, but they're being blended into a reality that doesn't match up in a certain way. Or it does match up, but it only matches up insofar as this whole kind of machine keeps moving, you know.
Oh yeah, like the kind of like the structure underneath is like, that's the only way to understand.
It needs the next movement. It always needs the kind of next movement. That's why Twin Peaks ended up feeling so like it just felt like it could just go on forever or something. Like you could endlessly kind of mine this material and do almost anything with it.
Yeah, totally. Like that's
Lynch could, not me, but Lynch, you know.
Right, exactly. But it's like that's what I was like fascinated with the Inland Empire, because I was like, it was so clear. I was like, it doesn't really matter what I'm looking at, you know, like it doesn't matter what he puts in there. Like he could just make a film about banana, but using the structure, it would just be like infinitely entertaining. And I was like, but it's pretty cool. So he's making the new Twin Peaks, or?
Did you ever see the old ones at all, or no?
I actually haven't. I'm pretty
okay. Yeah. Well. Yeah. The first seasons were in the early '90s. There were 2 seasons, and I don't think he directed and produced everything in the second season, but he definitely did all the first season, and I think most of the first half of the second season. But then, anyways, so 25 years later, just a couple years ago, Showtime signed a contract with him. So he made a season 3, and it was set in a time period that was, you know, literally 25 years later. But he was able to get all of the actors and actresses from 25 years ago to play in the new version. So there's like, season 3 just exists with this 25-year gap between it, which is really just a function of time. Like he could never have planned that.
Right.
But somehow 25 years later, somebody wants to do season 3, and he just makes this whole different, I mean, it's like, it's an absolute masterpiece of TV and film coming together. And like, horror and memory, and he's total genius at like. If you watch the show, you would know the theme song, which is this really romantic, kind of slow, very melancholic intro music.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he always uses that in a way that sort of ties you back in emotionally to it. And so then in the third season, he also does this, like in these really crucial moments, he'll play a song from the earlier seasons. That if you've seen it, you remember the song and it immediately pulls you into the emotion. And so it's so powerful because there's this cross 25-year, in this whole narrative, this whole made-up TV world. Yeah, anyways, it's really great stuff. And I think it is doing all this stuff. And that's the looping thing. Like,
yeah. It's a yeah, I remember that. Like, that's interesting. It's like, it's funny. It's like music always has that effect. It like cuts through time,
Yeah.
But I totally think that like that's what I mean, because I was but I was looking at other stuff like plants and stuff. I was like, wait, you can kind of break down a plant into this, like the way they organize themselves and all this stuff, like to this structure. I mean, like, I don't know if it's like scientifically viable, but it's like you can understand it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And also I was like looking at things in art, and like I was able to like put stuff together where it kind of cut down on the time, and like it was very clear, like it would punch through very quickly, and I don't know how to describe it, but it's like, I mean, like, right, I always refer to it just like as a machine. Like if you just balance these things correctly, it just goes.
Yeah. No, I know. I mean, I'm editing this paper, and I sort of remembered that it's also true about writing, and I end up really liking this because you realize that, well, if you just use the word invisible in the right spots, and you use the word, dynamic, and you use the word, matching up, or like all these, you can kind of arrange these words and concepts. You can purposely just redistribute them and sort of plant them.
Right.
And so instead of saying always something different, you just plant the same seed but in a different space. And then you're basically like you're tricking the reader because basically they're getting pleasure. They feel like they're the ones drawing the connections, but really the seeds are already planted there, ready for them to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, doesn't it also like make a huge relief on the burden of like the structure becomes so much easier to.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, that to me is like the real work of really working through the writing and really kind of reaching that point where you can weave things together, because that's the weaving moment when all of a sudden you see that, if you just tweak things here and there, it starts to vibrate. It starts to vibrate so much better together.
Right. Yeah.
And then you do feel a lot of relief because it's not so. It makes it easier.
Yeah.
In general.
I think that's amazing. Like, and it's also like, you'll know, like there's also a point, you remember, I think we talked about this, where it's going to work on somebody else too. Like if they adhere to the rules of reading. Yeah.
But it's going to at least invite them to go through a movement.
Right. Yeah.
Somebody might start out and just totally reject going through the movement. You can't prevent that from happening. But you want to set it. You want to set up the parameters, I think, so that if they're at least halfway willing, they'll keep going.
I mean, like going back to the negotiation. This is what I think is really interesting, because like a negotiation is like that. Where it's like, let's lay down the ground, and then if you do it correctly, it's like the thing will actually function itself out. Like the best possible solution will come if you lay down in the parameters, like preemptively. Like this is what we're looking for, you know, because we can say
Yeah.
that's not the outcome we
Yeah.
want because we don't, it fucks
Yeah.
this person, you know. This
Yeah.
is, huh. I was also thinking about like, so I was doing a lot of after this thing. This is the thing. Like I make the 3-ring diagram. Like that's like to me how I keep track of it.
Yeah.
But I was also looking through like art history and all this stuff, and just like history in general, and like I was like, oh, that's what I was doing like recently. Like was thinking about like looking for like a history of imagination, and trying to like think about what is imagination like independent of anything, any particular thing, or like. Because it's usually, you know, in culture, it's usually thought of like a creativity is bound by like an individual, what is it called? Like it's an individual skill. That
Mind or something.
Yeah.
Mind or skill or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And then people, you know, like they go off and try to hone their creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I in this paper I'm writing, I say that like I talk about the utopia of generic imagination. The utopia of generic imagination. You can forget the utopia part, but the generic imagination, I'll leave that for later.
Wait, why? No. Well, okay, let's talk about after.
Well, utopia, I take it as a kind of in itself is kind of imaginative way of looking at it, but utopia literally means nowhere. No,
right.
It means not where. And so the basic idea is that imagination is on the one hand generic, because it doesn't belong to anybody. It just sort of acts and ties things and ties different elements together and loops them together.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Without anybody like. So it's sort of at the opposite. I mean, you still have to like. You know, like if you're an artist, you still have to get good at using paints or something. I mean, like you still have to develop.
You're right.
Yeah, I mean, you have to develop technical skill. You have because you want it to be second nature. You want
you don't want to think about that stuff. Like
yeah, exactly. You want the sort of imagination half of it to be able to take over the technical parts of things, right? As much as possible. But yeah, so the important part is it's being generic. I mean, this is an old idea though, right? Like I forget who it is, but it used to be called the general intellect, or I think sometimes the active intellect. And this was, I think, like drawn from Aristotle or something. I mean, I really am not a good I don't know the genealogy of this stuff, but I do know that it existed. Just the notion that intelligence is a general capacity, and that each person can kind of come closer to drawing from that, you know. But then that also means that the products of the imagination are also generic, right? I mean, that their destiny is generic. Maybe I made it, but its destiny is generic.
Destiny is generic. Oh, yeah. I mean, like, because that's the only way it could work. Mechanically, because it has to go back into, like...
Yeah, exactly.
It has to go back
in,
and then it's like, once it does that, it then creates, like in Twin Peaks, it creates another weird variation.
Yeah.
Some more gas.
Exactly, yeah.
It's back in.
But then there's a difference between products which are destined for the generic and products which are, you know, destined for a consumer or destined for the consultant. You know, like if a product, you can use imagination for lots of things, and you can use it to create a product which you then, you know, give to the audience who wants the product, and then there's less of an exchange because then the audience can only use that product in sort of the designed way.
Okay.
Whereas I think with generics, the generic products, they are designed in such a way for the end user to make an absolutely new use of them if they can. Like,
Right,
there's
to make another generic product.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah. Like, it was funny because, like, in art, there was, like, 80s, there was this whole thing about consumer society. So, like, people would start to make interactive art where it's like, but then it's like, it became clear in the 90s and 2000s, like, wait, you also need a kind of an active imagination, which I'm not saying that people don't have, but it's not.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell, like the way somebody puts a spin, I don't know, whatever. But, like, yeah, generic, I know what so the generic product, so to give an example of this, what I came up with, I've been, like, trying to organize this, like, chat room based art school. Because I was like,
okay,
I think this can be a lot easier and, like, more accessible to people. So, like, one assignment was, like, make a unrecognizable. I was testing this on Instagram. Like, I told people, like, take an unrecognizable self-portrait. Like, take a self-portrait
Nice.
that you can't recognize. And then, like,
nice.
I was like, nobody's gonna do this. But, like, people did it, and, like, I would just, like, post it and show people, like, have a massive unrecognition, and then, like, just tag people, and then somebody messaged me later. It was like, I can't stop doing this. I was like, what? Really? I was like, you have better things to do.
It's totally addictive process.
Right.
Like unrecognizable self-portrait.
Yeah, because it's endless, right? It's like, by the time, once you recognize yourself a certain way, you're like, oh, I heard it. What's the other way?
Yeah.
But what I thought was interesting about it was, like, that it could be encapsulated into an instruction. Like, I didn't think that was possible, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. You mean that people would actually do it and listen to it and try it out?
Well, no. I mean, like, I'm pretty sure, like, it's pretty easy, from my experience. Like, you can manipulate people. Whoa, hey, it's pretty quiet. It's cute.
Sorry.
Is it yours or?
No, it's my roommate's.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Her name means joke in Turkish, shaka.
Shaka. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyways, sorry.
No, that's alright.
You're talking about the instruction to make
Yeah.
portrait.
This is what I thought was interesting, was, like, because it's like, you could easily manipulate somebody into making a portrait, but I mean, like, the marketing or the delivery of getting somebody to do it, trick somebody into do it, that's totally possible. But I was thinking about, like, will they have an experience where it's like, of some slight form, that procedure, the generic of, like, using your imagination, produce a generic product.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds cool. I mean, I totally think so. I mean, I imagine that a lot of art classes, I mean, I never really took one. I mean, well, like visual arts, I never took a class in that, but I imagine a lot of the exercises they try to do are, like, kind of just to get you to use this part of your brain without knowing that you're doing that,
Right, yeah.
to see what's possible. I mean, you do it with poetry too. Sometimes, like, you can learn, the rhyme scheme of a sonnet or something, and you realize, whoa, like, if I just try to write it, like, I spend as much time as it takes, and I try to write, it's like A, B, B, A, C, D, whatever the rhyme scheme is, and you write it all out. All of a sudden you have this sonnet, which you realize the form of it informed itself,
Right.
By trying to write in that form, you trick yourself into thinking a different way, because you have to think a different way, because that's how you write a sonnet. You can't just say whatever. You can't just say whatever you want.
Huh.
And there's all sorts of different poetic forms or whatever that you can, if you're ever like having, you don't know what to write or something, a lot of times you can trick yourself into writing something because it's like you're filling out a form at first.
Right.
Anyway, I think it's a little similar.
Yeah, totally. No, it's what you're talking about. But it's like, it's also like, it's kind of unpredictable what comes out. Like,
yeah, it's in a way more unpredictable than if you just wrote whatever came to your mind.
Right. Huh. But it's also like, it's not like a I was so like what comes to my mind is like in art, like there's like when you're talking about the structure, it's like, okay, so from what I see, what I'm thinking now, it's like there's like three options. There's like one is like in the art, like people would try to deturn forms, like they would try to subvert forms. So it's like like graffiti, like street art is famous for this. It's like McDonald's makes a logo, then like somebody like puts the McDonald's logo with a grenade or something.
Yeah.
But then it's like, this is like, I think what we're talking about is a third form, which is like you create a structure that kind of induces the procedure of imagination, which has nothing to do with the first two at all. Like,
oh wait, what was the second one?
The second one is just like you take subversion, like you subvert the existing one. So it's like there's a McDonald's logo, then you're like, McDonald's logo is actually a grenade.
I see.
Right.
I see.
But the third one is
so the first one is the original material or something.
Yeah, like it's like this commonly
the
known
product
sign.
thing.
Yeah, the product thing, and then you're like, oh no, it's like I'm gonna break the product apart and put it back together. So it's like anti its original product.
Yeah.
Third one is like super interesting.
I think for the situationists, like for Guy Debord, who talked about this like subversion type thing, I think he had that in mind as well. Like,
the third thing?
To sort of, the third thing, to kind of open the gates to generic imagination. Because he's just really interesting on all this stuff. But
right, but I think
I'd have to look at it.
But I think,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, yeah. No, totally. But I think like so it's
yeah, he says like plagiarism is necessary. Progress implies it.
Right. But but I would compare that, like the subverted McDonald's ad, to say like the David Lynch machine, or like your poetry machine. Not the sonnet, but like your poetry machine or the David Lynch machine, which creates this really flexible infinity, which like it doesn't care what's thrown into it, and it's like you're just constantly in the operation. And it's like you also, even within the operation, you have a choice of what to throw in there. Like you throw a McDonald's, so you throw it, I don't know, flour or something, or
I mean that's the experience of it. I mean you bring, at least with poetry, you bring together. I mean, this is why I love this is why I'm figuring this out between Laurel and poetry, because Laurel describes himself as a concept collider, like on the model of particle physics, where you send really tiny particles at super high speeds at each other, and they explode with extreme levels of energy, and then you have your observational apparatus there, which in this case would be your mind, or your sensibility or something. And then you try to record and observe what is the new particle that comes out when you collide the two particles. And Laurel's idea, is that you can do that with images, ideas, concepts, philosophical, anything, like authors, anything you can imagine can be collided together like that to form to find new particles or something.
Yeah, totally.
I think this is part of this third option. I really do. Right.
Right, because you can.
It's like for some reason right now I have a memory that my Aunt Mandy used to make dandelion wine. And I've never had dandelion wine. And like, because she was like much older when I knew her. She died when she was like, 98 or something.
Yeah.
But I always heard these stories that she used to make wine out of dandelions, like in the countryside in Iowa. And I've never seen dandelion wine anywhere. I've never heard of anyone else making it, and I never got to drink it. And I always wished that I had.
Huh.
And I think that's totally unrelated to what we were talking about.
No, but I mean, it also is. I think that's the collision.
Yeah, that's the joke. That's the joke. Yeah. I assume you've never heard of it before.
With dandelion wine?
Yeah.
Really? Is that what you're talking about?
I've never had it.
No, I've never had it. I've heard of it.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah. I've never heard of your aunt making dandelion wine.
Yeah. My aunt Mandy.
Hey, Mindy. Let's see.
I mean, I threw that out there just because it's like a lot of times in the process you start with some like data point that seems totally outlier, and then everything turns into a metaphor for something else. Like everything can get everything, no matter how far outside or unrelated, through the process of collision or something, like you can basically make anything out of it that you wanted in some way. I mean,
Right.
because things can stand for other things,
Yeah. No, I hear you. Well, I mean, like that's another. Sorry. Do you think the Lynchian thing does that also? That's allows for that.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's what leaves it open for any type of memory or dream or, fear or any sort of, basically any kind of psychic material. Like, there's nothing preventing any of it, technically speaking, from entering the operation.
Right.
Even if it doesn't make much sense or it doesn't lead to much sometimes. I mean.
Yeah, because but it's also, it's okay. So going back to the three films, like we have the Pulp Fiction, Malick, and then Lynch, right? So it's like, because you see the collision also in Tarantino in Pulp Fiction, like that's the having the overdose and like what the hell is happening,
Yeah.
And then it's like Malick, it's like it becomes this like beautiful thing, like creates beauty. The collisions create beauty. But then in Lynch, it's just like it's like suspended or something almost. You know, I mean they're happening, obviously, but it's like encased in this thing. Also, it's like jumping out of that thing it's encasing, or just jumping out of the encasements. I don't know what to call it.
No, totally. I think so. This is a key word to me with the suspended, that the images are suspended somewhere.
Like in the Lynchian one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because in Tarantino, you're like you're at the point of collision, like you're going moment to moment, you know.
Yeah.
And then like with Malick, he kind of like makes it a nice like song or a ride, you know, like the points flow into each other, you know. You smooth stuff over, but like Lynch is just like this amorphous gloop. It's just like where it's like you see these points of collision, but then it's like, oh, then there's this other, you know.
Yeah. It's almost like you're seeing the collision in a freeze frame. You're not like, with Tarantino, you're more kind of pulled into the action, right?
Exactly. You're like strapped to the front of the car, you know, and he's just like.
Yeah. But with Lynch, you're more. Yeah, it's like you're having this freeze frame watching the collision.
Right.
But it's not a flow. It's a freeze frame or a suspense of some type.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I was talking about the utopia thing a little bit, and this other guy that I'm working with, he talks about imaginal worlds, which basically don't exist. They don't exist anywhere. But he also talks about how they're made out of images in suspense, or suspended images.
Okay.
You know, images, the meaning of which is not like, you can't really interpret it. You just have to go with it. That's the whole point. You know, you have to enter the imaginal. You have to enter the imaginal world. You have to enter the suspended images, and only by doing that do they take you somewhere. You know, or do this sort of third option type thing that I think Lynch is doing. I think he's doing this more.
Yeah, everybody's doing it actually, and I think like.
True. Well.
But like Lynch has made this. Yeah, what are you talking about? Like, it's like easier to see it or something, or it's just like a different perspective on it.
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm just thinking that dreams are a little bit like that too, in a way. I mean, where did dreams even take place? You know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, I mean, like, I've always thought that, like, the kind of recursive nature of dreams and stuff have, you know, it has a similar structure of the experience of imagining something. In my opinion, like, where like at some point, like it envelopes you in like a world, like, or whatever. It like kind of envelopes you, but at the same time, you can kind of steer it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, this is a really interesting point.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say is like, because it's like once you like, and then there's a point where you become aware, or where sometimes for me it's like where I become aware that the thing I'm looking at, like on a small scale, is also recoding. I know it's gonna recode me, and then it's gonna recode the thing I'm inside or whatever, like the greater dream around me. So it's like, then it's like, I'm like, I have to think about like what to think about in order for it to have an effect, like in like a larger scale recursion. And so then I have to like think ahead of the world, if that makes any sense.
Mm.
And then like for me, it's like it's almost a similar act of like planting. You know, you plant the thing, you preemptively plant the seed, so you have the flexibility later without having to stress yourself.
It's a little bit like when I was sharing that memory, and you said, and you were a bit surprised, and you were like, "Are we talking about that? Are we actually talking about that?" It's like, what are we actually talking about?
But if we said like, but also in the beginning, it's like we said like we can talk about anything, like just any random, like there'd be, there's a thing here, like if we're in the beginning of the stream is like we like all interruptions are included or something, all inclusive interruptions or whatever. Which I think I actually sent to you in the chat.
Yeah.
Which I mean, like that's to me, I think that's interesting with like, especially with media. Okay, so like, which gets back to this instruction thing, which is like, you know how like people plan, or like, I'm gonna plan to execute a series of actions. Like you go to the grocery list. Right? You have a grocery list. Like that's a typical plan. Like carrots, lettuce, tomato, chicken. And then you go to the grocery store and you have to like execute these series of maneuvers to find the thing. Things that you've already predetermined. So it's like you're just like running on autopilot.
Yeah.
And then you come back and it's like 40 minutes gone or whatever. But I think it's interesting. Like if you wrote a grocery list, like I'm gonna go to the grocery and I will decide what to eat by like rolling dice or something. I don't know, or like just like whatever memory is coming into my brain at that second, I'm gonna just like my body is gonna react and grab something.
Yeah. That's usually how I go about my day.
I think that's how most people like live life. Like, that's pretty sensible.
Yeah.
But it's
But
also
then, but then
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, there's a third option where you go to the grocery store and you buy something that they don't have to sell, or you get you get you come home with something that you didn't that the grocery did not have on offer before you got there.
Oh, like the groceries, like like you trade somebody at the grocery store for something. Like you steal something like out of somebody's car.
Possibly, yeah. Or just something odd materializes in space that
Like a
just wasn't
fruit
there
falls from
before.
the sky.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe you come up with a thought in the grocery store that the grocery store wasn't selling. I really like this idea of going into public spaces where there's a certain accepted like function for the social space,
Yeah.
and then something takes place, or you speak to somebody, or some bizarre thing maybe you observe, and you walk away with yeah, that's what I was joking about, is you walk away from the public space with something that like wasn't there before you went there, or something like it.
Yeah.
It only happened then, you know. You couldn't go there the next day and get the same thing again.
Right.
The way that you can get the same can of beans or something.
But then you can just write that into the list, right? You can be like, I'm going to go to the grocery store, and then find something.
You could, yeah.
Right? Or
Yeah.
then find something that
Yeah,
I hadn't
cool.
even been looking for, or that they're not selling.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. I mean, you can just integrate that. You can also just integrate that into going about daily things, you know.
Yeah, I absolutely, exactly.
I'm looking over all of my notes here, and I definitely feel like I've come out with lots of things I had not expected to talk about.
Same here. Like I had all these ideas, and I was like, fuck it. But also,
you had other stuff you wanted to talk about. You can throw it out there.
oh no, I mean like I think we're talking about it anyways. Like, this is totally satisfying. But isn't it also like, what was I gonna say? Like this can be applied almost to everything, you know? Like not just grocery stores.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's different pressures. I mean, sometimes you have to do level 1 grocery list plan, you know. Sometimes, but
Oh yeah.
but you're asking about a way of life or something, you mean?
Sort of. I mean, this almost goes back to the utopian idea, like, and the idea of like, what if things were actually organized? Like, what if a grocery store was organized this way? Like, but it actually functions somehow. Like people, like, is it possible like people would get fed and stuff?
I don't see why not. I mean,
Right. I mean, it's like we just
these are higher level functionings that don't leave behind the previous level. It's like with the McDonald's thing. It's like there's the original symbol, there's the subversion of the symbol, and then there's this other thing you could
operation.
maybe that you could do with it. And the third level there isn't. It's not like it's stupider or something than the first two levels, right? It's just like at a
Yeah, it's almost incorporative.
it's at a higher capacity. Yeah,
Yeah. It's like incorporative. It's not like,
yeah.
um, but it's also incorporative stuff that isn't there, which like,
Stuff that isn't there yet.
but yeah, and that you can't really predict either. You know, that you can't know ahead of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, it's like incorporating the not yet.
Right. But like that you can incorporating the not yet, but for sure that you know could, right?
Yeah.
But you can't really articulate it either. You can know it could, but can't really define it either. Define
Yeah.
it ahead of time.
Yeah, but you are dreaming about it. You are having maybe a vision about it or an intuition about it as you're
Right.
going about level 1 and 2
And you
activities.
can also write this sentence incorporating the not yet. You can know it could, but can't really define it ahead of time. And then that is encapsulates it ahead of time.
Yeah.
And outside of a dream.
That's the ground. It increases the powers of anticipation as well, you know.
Right. Because it's like now we have like a nice encapsulation that we can pass back and forth without like you having to go inside and experience my dream while I'm sleeping, or go to me in the grocery store.
Right. That's the economization of the thought. Putting it in a condensed form, or so that it can be transmitted.
Right, and then we don't forget at the time. It's like this. No. We're not looking for. We're not gonna go read the grocery list. That's not what we're actually looking for.
No.
Huh.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of like this psychoanalyst guy named Wilfred Bion, and he has this really. We'd have to maybe talk about it some other time because it's sort of in depth. But he's got this whole like grid of how thoughts evolve, how thought evolves. But like one of the basic ideas is that we have what he calls preconceptions that are then in search of trying to find a realization.
Okay.
And then once the preconception finds the realization, then the realization becomes the new preconception. So you have this constant development of thoughts from preconception that is like in search of trying to find something to contain it, or something to hold it, something to make it like that you can kind of get your hands around. And then that's station, and that's like the phrase, like incorporating the not yet or something. Like that's the realization moment that all of a sudden the preconception can be kind of contained in that phrase or something. But then the movement keeps going, because then whatever's realized enters back into the system as a new preconception searching for a next realization.
Well, I mean, it's cyclical, but if you define the terms of it, like incorporating the not yet, you can know it, but can't really define it ahead of time. Then it's like it defies the absorption, because it's like, like realizing that preconception always leaves the preconception moment open, if that makes any sense, because there's nothing actually you're preconceiving.
Yeah, I'd have to think about that. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
It, but it still happens. It's like in the Lynch, you know, it's like the
Mhm.
dream logic, but it still happens. But then
Yeah.
it,
Hmm. I mean, it's both because like if you just observe what just happened now, right? There was something that was trying to be formulated, and then okay, so we come around to this realization of incorporating the not yet. But then there is still this further movement of like examining that, you know.
oh yeah, I mean you can like detail it and all this stuff, but it's like I think with
But you
the
think that the short form is important of it.
well, no, I mean it's like I think if you fit the parameters together, it kind of like it does the suspension effect, like incorporating the not yet. You can know it will come, it could come, but can't really define it ahead of time. So it's like
Yeah.
it becomes this like liquidy kind of, because if you try to push it into the not yet, you once you get to the
Yeah.
point where you're trying to define it, you're like, wait, the other criteria says you can't define it, really define it. You know,
Ah, right.
they like push and pull on each other. It's like a gyroscope almost or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think of like question of patience and question of being able to tolerate frustration and instability and anxiety because I think that's a bit part of incorporating the not yet is that
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
like kind of asks you to be careful be careful I guess, but also like somehow have patience or put up with anxiety or put up with the instability or something.
Oh, totally. I think
You,
I totally agree because it's like, well, the anxiety is usually like a test against some idea that you think should happen or something, or it's like
yeah.
some condition that can't resolve.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's interesting what you just said. Put up with, I think you said, put up with a condition that can't be resolved.
Yeah, you don't. You just can't. There's no way you can resolve it.
Yeah. It's like not attempting to fit the thing into a function.
Yeah, like I in my head I always see it as kind of like um, a series of like they're cutting walls or something, and it's like every like condition I'm putting on is like an additional wall I have to like navigate around, and it's like um, you know, if one of them is faltering, then it's like, wait, I
Yeah.
can't move on to the next stage. I'm like, the anxiety usually comes when I'm like, oh, I'm fucking stuck here, and I have to wait for this thing, I have to wait for that thing, and like,
Yeah.
I don't even know, and then it's like, for me, the conclusion is usually like, I shouldn't have built these conditions that way in my head, like,
Yeah.
it was a stupid way of organizing these possibilities, like, there's too many walls in between.
Yeah, man. That's good. But I mean, I think people can realize, a person can realize that and then also feel even more anxiety of trying to reorganize them.
Right,
It
right.
seems even more tough to reorganize them.
Oh, totally. Because I think it's like the amount of, yeah. Yeah, that's why I think like I kind of come up with this practical solution of like periodic reevaluation because it seems to like
Yeah.
because it's like that way it automatically incorporates the not yet, like because like as time passes more information will come to be or whatever, your perspective will change or something, so it's like you can't
Yeah.
really do it all at once. It's like you go in stages and it's like
Yeah.
a lot of times it's like it's not even worth, it wasn't even worth doing in the first place, you know, like it was like a
Yeah. I mean, this is why I will always be sort of interested in different psychological and psychoanalytical sort of theories, just because I think a lot of what they're trying to do is figure out why that happens. Like, why, you know, one way to theorize it is like people have feelings of love and hate and, you know, envy or fear or, you know, all sorts of different feelings, and that leads them to kind of want to minimize those bad feelings as much as they can in the moment. And so in the moment they organize things in a way that isn't fully thought through, right? And that
right, yeah,
then in retrospect they're saying, oh man, that was, you know, that bad arrangement wasn't even necessary, you know. And that's kind of the process, right, where you realize that like you set things up in a way simply because you know, wanted to minimize
a risk or something.
your own anxiety or frustration in that moment. You tried to get away from it too fast, and you ended up setting up things in a fucked up way.
That explains a lot of things.
So then, like, if you're getting help for that, you know, you're basically just being given a space where you can be freely as anxious as possible to think through it and, you know, try to make the better arrangement, you know, like basically put up with a condition that can be resolved, like you said, you know, but in a healthier way, I guess, you know, in a way that you're not just going insane, which is hard not to do.
Well, this is why I think the going back to the idea of superposition, it's like interesting to think, or like for me, it's like, or useful at least, like to think that there is a solution. Um, there's like a pretty much like win-win optimal solution. It's just like I can't see it right now or whatever state I'm in.
Yeah.
It's not like graspable, but it's like objectively possible. Um, and then it's like whatever, and then it's like the feeling that I'm feeling is like I have to deal with that or something, you know, like I have to do something. Like
What type of feeling is that?
the patient frustration, instability, anxiety is like that is some
Yeah.
like because I'm like okay, like that is something going on with me, and it's like there's a solution, but I have to deal with the stuff that's happening to me. So because I can't think in this state, you know, I can't. The solution will never come in this state. It's impossible. Like there's no.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, that's the whole problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Bian's most like basic idea is that basically like there's thoughts before there's a thinker to think the thoughts, and that like you know, basically there's two options. Either when you're frustrated, there's either the option to somehow evade the frustration, or to somehow develop a thinking apparatus to think through the frustration, you know. So like if you put it in the absolute most simple terms, it's like evade or avoid or somehow get rid of the frustration by a sort of quick, instant gratification type quick and ready way, or like try to think through it so that you can come to a different state where you can actually do something with those thoughts.
Right.
And not be like basically not be pushed around by the frustrating thoughts, you know.
I think this is super interesting because it's like, but I also think like here there's a third option, which is really weird. It's not like a normal response to these ideas, which is like the entering the mode of artistic productivity, or like the dream logic frame. Yeah. Which like, because it's like, for me, it's like when you put together the thinking apparatus to think through the frustration, it's usually through like a series of logic, or like for me, it's like let's break this problem down into like logical statements, all this stuff, you know, into reasons and stuff. But like in that state when it like frustrated, it's like my mind just goes super fucking slow, like, and it's just like super uncreative. It's just totally mechanical. Like I'm just like dredging up the next piece of logic like a computer. Yeah. And then like the solution that comes out is like usually like really convoluted or complex, or like just like kind of like piecemeal or whatever. It's just, it doesn't really feel like a solution. And then like from when I was like stuck in this, I was like, wonder if I think about this like an artwork. And then like I would go take a nap or something, or take a walk, and I was like, whoa. All right, I'd distract myself, and it's like, whoa, like it's like, it's actually pretty easy to solve this. Yeah. But
I think there's a lot of. Go ahead, yeah.
But it's almost like the grocery store thing, where it's like that's the not yet. Like it's really like relying on the not yet, and like you can know it, but can't really define it ahead of time. Like as a problem solving process, which I think is like insane, but it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think there's a lot of different opinions out there about this sort of the difference between. I mean, what you were saying was a bit different, I think, because you said, look at the real life problem itself like an artwork, you know. Yeah. I think that's what you were sort of like how you were saying it, right? That gives you some. That gives you some flexibility to like go take a nap, or like somehow detach from it, or.
Well, it's like it's more like I'm gonna like posit these three principles that I used to make an artwork. Like you used to write a poem. Like there's like like I'm gonna apply dream logic to this thing, rather than like normal world rational person thought. Which I can do while I'm napping. Sort of half napping, also quicker, more relaxed. But it's like it's really like a rigorous application of.
I think I know. I think I have experienced this. Yeah. You know, actually, you're making me think that. For me, maybe it's not always going like taking a nap or something, but going on a run, because I like to jog.
Yeah.
And like a lot of times when I'm jogging, I listen to like Denzel Curry or some, you know, like some rap music or something, and or I just like and then I listen to it, and I know the album so well, like I've heard it hundreds of times, so it really is kind of so ingrained in my psyche that it's a bit like going into a hypnotic state, and then my mind just totally wanders.
Right.
And really in that moment it's very hypnotic, and I come up with solutions to like very practical problems like that, you know.
Exactly, like
and you just keep running, and like you're focused on running, but the thoughts keep twisting around, and yeah, it's great.
I take a shower, and when it's cold,
Yeah.
it's like best. And like go for a walk, and then like, but I totally forget about the problem. Like I totally forget about the problem. It's just like the solution comes, and then like, this is like why it's funny to me. Like I've been working with this guy who's like a business guy, and he's like, why don't you like work at your computer and stay on the spreadsheet, or like use these spreadsheets the stuff to keep track of what you're thinking, and I'm like, I don't this stuff doesn't work, man. Like it's just that's funny because like now it's like ingrained in common sense to me, and I'm like, there's no way anybody can make anything by like sitting at a computer and like working. Like to me it's like totally illogical. I'm like, if you want to solve a problem, go on a walk. You know?
Yeah.
Take a shower.
Yeah, that was Nietzsche's big complaint against everybody, was that they thought while they were sitting at their writing desks, and he was always like, strong thoughts come when you get them on a walk.
That's hilarious. Strong thoughts. I love that.
Yeah. Nice, man. What are you up to the rest of the day? You're it's like almost 5 o'clock there or something?
Yeah, almost 5. I gotta do a bunch of stuff late on. It's like fucking 11 there?
You gotta go. Yeah, it's almost 11, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean this.
You gotta do like grocery list stuff?
Grocery list stuff, yeah, but I needed to like get in there was impossible grocery lists, so I had to, this is really helpful.
There's a lot of impossible grocery lists out there, man.
That's true. Yeah, I agree. This is fucking great. I feel great.
Yeah, this was super fun. I'm jazzed.
I
got a bunch of notes here. I'll send them to you. But I gotta go meet someone pretty soon. But
okay, I put it on a live stream on my Facebook, so you can share it also.
Great. I'll just put it in the comments or something.
Yeah, you should. But you should also share it on your Facebook, like.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Sweet. All right, man. Well.
I didn't even know that was. I didn't even know we were live streaming.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Cheers, man. Well, hey, it's great talking. Really great seeing you and talking with you, man.
Yeah, you too. Like, I think I'm just gonna keep doing the same thing with people who think exactly the same stuff. This is gonna be funny.
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah. We can keep growing it. Yeah.
This is like the generic stream. Almost. It's like.
Yeah. It's the share machine.
The share machine. Yeah. Okay.
All right, dude.
All right. See you.
Have a good rest of your day, man.
You too. Bye.
Peace, everyone. Have a good rest of your day, man. Peace, everyone.